I was shocked when I saw those legs in my DMs. Here is a young man who has been through so much, and in the end he came to me in this condition. I think the first thing that catches your eye, besides the questions about ingrown nails, is that his toe is very, very wet. This occurs naturally. He becomes nervous, anxious, scared, and his feet sweat constantly. This is also one reason for ingrown nails. Let's go step by step. I started with the renovator treatment, an antiseptic with astringent effects. And now I'm going to assess the extent of the problem and, of course, at the same time ask my client how he managed to achieve such impressive results. We can see there's at least some free edge. And here are the first movements. When I just cut a little piece from the free edge, you can see that it starts to twitch. Very briefly, he is very scared of everything because his story is quite sad. I'll be working with him for a long, sometimes slow and painful time. But in the end, you will be able to see the result at the end of the video. I'm starting by using a tamponade. I took the thinnest one so that he would be comfortable. My task now is to at least dry the sinuses a bit and figure out where the edges of the nail plate are. I'm hardly holding his big toe and I can't bend it back to get a better view because he simply doesn't let me do it. It turns out that his nails have been growing in like this for a very long time. By the way, the other 4 toes also have a sad tendency to curl. You can see it in the frame now. The second toe is also quite arched. For many years he trimmed his nails himself, which always hurt. Overall, he suffered and endured a lot. And when he joined the army, a surgeon worked with him there. Well, as you can see, nothing changed here after the surgery. I'm now demonstrating and showing that part of his nail plate isn't connected at all to the living tissue, to the living skin, to the nail bed, because there's some inflammation there. There's fluid under the nails. And in general, there's a lot going on. And besides that, he's twitching a lot, and it's extremely difficult to even get anywhere in there. Today's work will be almost blind. But while I was distracting him and carefully placing the packing to give myself access. And in general, at least some kind of view. Of course, I asked him about it, and he told me that it constantly causes him problems. I mean, literally, he can't walk properly. Oh, by the way, when I looked at his shoes, everything became clear to me. His feet are quite large. Especially when his toes are inflamed, of course, they simply get bigger because of the swelling. Of course, there's no way he could wear narrow sneakers with a pointed toe. So I told them that in this world, sometimes things are just simple, basic, like a croc. And I'm glad that he listened to me, and literally at the next appointment, he came wearing them. Of course, I gave him recommendations, told him that he would need to walk every day, and can you imagine how surprising it was that he actually walked almost every day? I placed the dates in the upper left corner of the video, showing when he arrived and returned. Of course, I didn't record all of his visits, because there were just so many of them. We did all sorts of things there, set up a bunch of correctional systems to achieve results. The most difficult visit was the first one. Staying centered in the frame was impossible. I'm taking straight scissors now to remove the part of the wall that might have an uneven edge or maybe even a fragment. And because he's twitching, I can't do it all the way the first time. I'll say it again, I'm working blindly. The swollen pads are really getting in my way. And of course, at that point, I was already thinking there was a chance he would still need to be sent to a surgeon, but not for work on the nail plate, rather for work on the pads themselves. Because sometimes it happens that either the pads initially have a poor tendency or it's an acquired condition. Due to the fact that something is constantly being picked at or cut out there, the pads can develop some growths that can only be removed surgically later on. Here's a small corner inside. This isn't all of it. It just wouldn't let me go further. And we agreed that for now we'll manage with packing. When the inflammation calms down a bit, we'll start working with corrective systems. And I understood that in his case, with moist feet, of course, a glue-based corrective system would work rather questionably. That's why the decision was made in favor of a hook corrective system. In this case, you can see that after we removed the edge of the nail, a red substance appeared. Just in case, I won't say that word because social media can be harmful these days, and you understood me. Next, I'll continue. I'm applying the same renovator that I used before. It's an antiseptic with an astringent effect. This is a very important point when working with clients like this, because as you saw, there's a red liquid and we need to make sure it stops coming out. Next, we will work on the second wall. I specifically left this entire cut to show the scale of the problem. He was really shaking from everything that was happening. The funny thing is, it doesn't even hurt there anymore. He got so wet and suffered so much that it's causing him a lot of stress. That's why we took our time and chose to approach from afar, possibly not completing everything, but just so that it wouldn't be such a serious stress for him. So the goal was to work as minimally traumatically as possible, and now I've cut off a special little corner to have access. Because when you get in there with nippers and the nails are quite thick, when you press the nippers, when you close them along the line, the nail moves. And this movement of the nail plate can also cause some slightly unpleasant sensations. That's why I worked carefully, didn't rush, and tried to listen to him. Here we're removing another piece. And yes, I see that we've just had a real flood here. But actually this happens when you remove this very ingrown piece of the nail plate. We'll clean, tidy, calm things down and erase all traces of the crime. I'm using the same antiseptic with an astringent effect again, and right now on the napkin we can actually see how our antiseptic works. The red color changes to brown, which is a sure sign that the astringent effect has worked. I'm applying it in several stages to completely stop what's happening. I'm tamponating both sides again, and I also continue to do this using the thinnest tamponade possible so that he feels as comfortable as possible. Don't forget to select the right curette. I'm using one with smooth edges. This ensures the client stays comfortable during the procedure and nothing touches or rubs unnecessarily. I'm applying a special ointment that will help soothe everything that happened here, because our goal is to reduce inflammation. And on top of that, I'll also apply an extra dressing. I won't mention the name of the ointment because many people mistakenly believe that it's enough to just apply it. But the thing is, you should only apply the ointment after you've worked on the sides of the nail. It doesn't dissolve the nail plate, it just helps to reduce inflammation. After placing the tamponade, which acts as a barrier, we need to put in enough so that it also pushes back the nail folds. So after placing the tamponade, I put on a bandage and send him home. Now I'll show you the work with the second foot. The situation on the second toe seems a bit simpler, but we also see there are actual drops of dew, a lot of moisture, and naturally we see that on one hand there are some serious issues, but on the other hand more or less everything looks normal. I'm showing the renovator again because in this video I think it's one of the main characters. We apply antiseptic, carefully dry everything and clean it out. And now I want to show you what's happening on the side of his inner lateral ridge, the one that's closer to the second toe. It's really a problem. Well, honestly, it's squishing. Yes, that's true. Obviously, it's extremely uncomfortable for him because of this, and it's all very hard for him. And now we will also work with him carefully and gently. We're preparing the instruments. I'm going to use a curette now. This is the P20 model with a smooth edge that doesn't injure the skin. And I'll also use my favorite tweezers, T05, also from Nippon. These tweezers have special little teeth at the tips, which make it very convenient to remove pieces of ingrown nail. Here we can also observe that part of the nail plate on the inflamed side is not attached to the nail bed. This means there's room to insert the straight cutters. But first we remove all the subungual material using a curette and at the same time check how twisted the nail is there. And following the standard procedure using tamponade, very carefully and slowly, I begin to separate the lateral nail wall and the lateral fold. Our task is to dry everything, because once again I can't see anything at all. These seemingly simple, straightforward manipulations actually allow you to get into the area you need and get a good view. Just basic tamponade and drying. With straight cutting forceps, I'm carefully and slowly trying to remove the edge of the lateral wall. As you can see, the nail is thick and difficult to work with. I'm working blindly because our view is also limited by the active lateral fold. I try to do this by touch until I feel the nail plate with the nipper's blades. But honestly, it's probably impossible to explain or teach this. It comes with experience. After doing it many times, eventually you start to get it right and you begin to feel how much you need to cut and where. And now I'm showing that here we have the edge of the nail. I'm gently pulling it with tweezers that are able to hold even such a slippery piece of nail. And we see that it doesn't want to come off at all. I realize that I haven't cut it all the way through. This can happen when you're working blindly, so what should you do? I rinse everything we have here to get access again, improve visibility and dry it a little. I soothe the skin and bring in the straight cutting nippers again along the same path, but I try to go a little deeper. To do this, I raise my right elbow, or you can even stand up. And here our cut is completely finished. Here is quite a large piece that was in the side walls. I'm showing it to you for the video. Next, of course, you need to trim the free edge and do the tamponade. I rinse, trim, tamponade and continue working. I also don't forget to carefully round off the tip that's sticking out. And I know that people will say you shouldn't round off nails and so on, but actually in some situations it's necessary. We have some overgrowth here and we absolutely don't need sharp corners. You shouldn't round them off if you don't understand how you're doing it. I'm carefully showing you now how deep the groove is that remains after we've removed the nail and how much it curls inward. Actually, the curette goes in and there's almost a U-shaped arch there, so the nail goes in very, very deep. I'm removing the small fragments that were there. These are pieces of the nail that were left behind. And again, I'm applying an ointment that will soothe our inflammation. On top, I generously pack everything with a tampon in such a way that the packing goes under the nail and also leaves enough volume to push back the lateral fold. And in this condition, I'm sending him home today. Let me remind you, it was October 5th. Also, I packed the other side too. Because even though there's no redness, I can clearly see that his nail is also curling on that side. It's only a matter of time before it gets inflamed there. Plus, he admitted it happens on that side too. So we packed the area, applied ointment, and are sending him home. Just a couple of days later, on October 7th to be exact, he came back for a dressing change. This is what the finger looks like, the one I showed you last. So the tamponade is in place, everything is fine, and the redness has decreased a bit. I'm applying our antiseptic again, and let's remove the tamponade and see how everything looks. Let me remind you, it's only been 2 days and we already have a very good result. And here you can clearly see how the tamponade works. Notice how much space we have on this side now. So at this point the skin is not touching the nail and we can see that little hole left from the part of the nail plate that was growing into the skin. I washed everything, checked it again, put in the tamponade and applied the ointment. We put on the bandage again and sent him home once more. The next visit was already on October 8th, and here I'm showing the first finger. If you don't remember what it looked like, you can rewind back, or I'll show it here somewhere in a picture in a circle how it looked after a few days. Our first visit was on the 5th, and now it's the 8th. 3 days later, you can already see good results. We're changing our packing again, rinsing and drying everything. Let's take a look at the second toe. Here you can also clearly see that the skin is off to the side. I'm demonstrating this with a curette right now. And now there's an opportunity to look a bit deeper and see that very hole that's left. From the embedded nail plate, yes, that's how it works. Nails almost always grow this way from the inside. We were expecting a correction system installation. Here I'm showing the unibrace and 3-toe correction systems. By any means necessary, with all sorts of tricks and efforts, the correction systems were installed. And in the end, I want to say that on the 8th, we installed these correction systems. He wore these systems for a while and then he came back and said that the hooks were bothering him a little. So we decided to reinstall and, at our own risk, use a glue system with a titanium thread. We installed it twice. The first time was in 2019 and then we reinstalled it one more time after that. But unfortunately, I don't have any material from that visit. Yes, he's still sweating and nervous. The situation remains unresolved. And I'm sharing with you the progress we've had since his last visit, which was on November 3rd. This is what his big toe looks like now. I think the result is quite noticeable. Here, the unibrace hook system is already in place. In this case, it was possible to attach it on both sides, hooking it onto the edges of the nail plate. Because before that, he wouldn't let it go all the way in, and it was just a malfunction. In my opinion, we've done a lot of work like this in just a month, and we'll see what the results will be next. And yes, by the way, with this correction system, he went somewhere to his homeland for about a month. That's the story. Share your thoughts in the comments.